be outside when I do Tai Chi. It's all about earth energies and human energy. Taoism is all about the energy of nature. It doesn't make sense to do it inside when you don't have to. Sometimes I worry about getting pulled over. It's not because I drive fast. More worried about that. Yeah, not everybody understands these things. So the third leg of the Tai Chi tripod that makes it such a terrific transformational tool is the connection to the multi-thousand-year history of pugilism in China. The Chinese martial arts are magnificent, and they are alternately very simple and direct and sometimes very flowery and elaborate, but what they all share is their effectiveness. They're effective because they were used by people to preserve themselves on the dusty road, whether it was to protect their own family, to protect themselves, to work as soldiers or bodyguards or policemen. There's just been a lot of time for these techniques to become refined. What we have left of them today are in some ways the product of evolution. And if they are still with us, that means they really work well. Because if they didn't work well, they would have been erased. We would have lost them on the dusty road somewhere where they failed and someone died. So the things that have been preserved are the things that have worked consistently. And Tai Chi draws heavily on them. Now, of course, Chinese Kung Fu, of which Tai Chi is a sort, has always looked very heavily to animals for inspiration. You can see the tie to Taoist philosophy in nature. Watching animals was a very early and obvious way to try to figure out how to make power, to see what nature has written as being the fastest, most effective, best way to subdue prey or to escape, to get a meal, to win a fight. So one way that the traditional Tai Chi training teaches the ideas of body mechanics that are so sophisticated in this art form is to use various tools in the curriculum. And traditionally those tools were weapons. Today we don't think of them as weapons, we think of them just as training tools, the same way you would think of a dumbbell or an ab machine or a bicycle. But because of course we're not out on the dusty road with a 7-foot halberd or with a spear. This is the age of firearms and of nuclear weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons, and spears and knives don't seem quite as appropriate now. However, as training tools, they're magnificent. And one way of thinking about the value of some of these tools is, let's take for example the most common Tai Chi training tool, which is the Tai Chi straight sword. It's a double-edged, long, thin sword, usually a 26, 28, 30-inch blade, and a small handle for one hand. Now, I have read that some practitioners talk about sword training, and in their talks, they talk about becoming the sword. Certainly in Japanese arts, which are very sophisticated when it comes to cutting and swords, they talk about becoming the sword. In our Wild West, we think about becoming the bullet. We think about a guy with a gun and how is he going to hit that target and be the bullet. Tai Chi really is a dramatically different approach to movement, to martial arts, to mind, and to body. We don't want to become a sword. No matter how magnificent a sword may be, no matter if it is full of beautifully layered, 1,000 layers of beautiful steel folded over and hammered and done by a master craftsman, even if it's worth a fortune and beautiful to look at and glorious to hold, it is still an inanimate object. And the only thing it shares with us in that regard is the carbon that is found in steel is also found in us. We don't want to become an inanimate object. We don't want to become a sword. We want the sword to become us. We want to follow that river. We want to feel and sense every energy and every movement around us. If we're going to wield that weapon successfully, we have to be alive and sensitive all the way through it to its end. We don't want to become an inanimate, insensate, dumb piece of steel. We want to enliven the steel so that we cannot, so much so, that we cannot even see where our hand ends and where the sword begins. If we're doing this really properly, we extend our chi, our life force, our energy. We extend our awareness, our intelligence, and our intention into the sword, so much so that touching the sword is the same as touching our finger. And we're able to feel and do just as we would if the sword were our hand, except that it's strong and it's sharp and it cuts. And this example is a very good one to help you understand why training your body and mind in a way that extends your awareness and your calm center and your sensitivity out into the world can reap great benefits.